This podcast is brought to you by the Heldridge Hotel, New Brunswick's only 4-star hotel and a preferred hotel of Rutgers football fans. The Heldridge helps you make the most of your game day weekend, providing premium accommodations in the cultural heart of downtown New Brunswick. Restaurants, bars, theaters, parks, museums, and more are only steps away. Whether you're traveling alone or with a large group, book your stay at the Heldridge and make the most of your game day weekend. Visit theheldridge.com today.
The new podcast, In the Shadow of Princeton, starts as the matriarch of a prominent Princeton family is found stabbed to death in her locked basement. Investigators look from a serial attacker to her family to Princeton University students. One hot-blooded investigator sees a conspiracy. Is he way off base, or does privilege let you get away with murder? In the Shadow of Princeton is available wherever you get podcasts, or you can binge it ad-free by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify.
From NJ.com and the Star Ledger, welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politti and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start shopping.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Rutgers Rant. Coming off a, what was it, 42-20 loss? Something like that, right? Out in Southern Cal, three of us get a nice little trip out to Santa Monica, walk the boulevard, all that fun stuff. How you fellas doing? Do you like LA? Did you have a good time?
I love it.
love it.
College, yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, it was great. Spent some time, even a day after, did the whole Hollywood thing. It was very fun. Very fun. I had a great time.
I liked it. I am exhausted. I've been just completely the time change destroyed me to a level I did not expect. Yes.
Wow. The time change destroyed you, but not the In-N-Out burger. Is that what you're telling me?
The In-N-Out burger was as good as I thought. People always say it's not overrated. It's properly rated. I agree. The burger was fine. If you gave me Shake Shack and In-N-Out, I'd probably say same quality, which is about what I was expecting.
High quality. Good. All right. Let's talk some football. We'll come back to our road trip later in the show. All right. I don't know. We've got a lot here to recap this game, but this is the thought that occurred to me while I was in the plane flying home, that we went out to Los Angeles and we got exactly what I expected to get from Southern Cal, the exact program, the exact aura of it. You know, this is the program of Keyshawn Johnson and Lynn Swann had a guy named Mekhi Lemon, right? Same NFL star receiver. The program of Carson Palmer and Caleb Williams. Now it's Miller Moss, big armed quarterback, flashy playmakers, skills, swagger, probably too much swagger. Some of the videos that emerged out of this game. But that's Southern Cal, even at 4-4. And I think you guys know where I'm going with this. My question is, what happened to the identity of the Rutgers program? Like this was my takeaway. Like all the things that we thought we were going to see from a Greg Schiano program, we're just not seeing anymore. You know, we're supposed to be the aggressive defense that gets at the quarterback and forces turnovers. And it didn't touch the quarterback. No forced turnovers. Guys running free for gobs of yardage. So that crossed that off the list. Supposed to be we're going to win games on the margins with special teams. Special teams are below average. Miss an extra point, give up a 70-yard kickoff return. No advantage there anymore. You know, and then the third thing, we're going to run the ball. We're going to be a physical, run-oriented offense. They've passed for 77 times in the last two games alone. I get it; they're trailing in these games. They have to do it, but that's not a Greg Schiano team. It seems like we're in this last month of all the things that concern you about where this is going. This has got to be a big one. Like I don't recognize this program right now.
We're in a bizarre world where Rutgers is playing in shootouts over the last 2 weeks where they have to pass the ball all over the yard to try to come back and have its offense overcompensate for its defense. A complete 180 from last year's team. To me, I agree on the defensive part where this team is not getting sacks. It's not getting interceptions. It's not forcing turnovers. It's not making game-changing plays on the defensive end. Last year, the team was very much a bend, don't break, keep things in front of you, don't give up the big plays, and it worked. This year, they're giving up big plays. It's not like they're selling out. They're doing that because they're selling out and bringing 8 guys and trying to sack. Like, I can't remember the last time Rutgers went all-out blitz. I can't remember, even, again, on special teams, they're not blocking kicks. They're giving up big plays on the return. That 80-yard run was just because two guys went to the same area. Just a simple mistake that Greg Schiano teams never make. The kicker, who had one of the best seasons in program history last year, is missing. He missed more kicks in the past 8 games than he did all of last year, right? Like, it just, none of it is making sense. And again, we've mentioned this a couple times. It's a shame because the offense, to me, looks pretty good, like more than reasonable. If Rutgers had this offense last year, we're talking about the special season we've been thinking this year was happening, which makes it all the more disappointing. But I think that, to your point, the defense is not only bad, it's bad in areas that you expect them to be good in, and that's pretty disappointing.
Yeah, football is a game of imposing your will and your identity on the other team. I've always kind of that's how I've always kind of defined it. And Rutgers had a clear identity for the last couple seasons, exactly as you laid it out, Steve. We're going to be a physical team, win in the trenches, run the ball, play great defense. When you go up against these high-powered offenses like USC, Wisconsin with Luke Fickell, they kind of spread you out, and that's fine. That's their identity, but Rutgers has to still impose its identity, and that identity is completely gone. So that's an issue that I've been identifying the last couple weeks, and now it's really it's beyond obvious that Rutgers has lost that identity, and that's a shame because Rutgers was one of those last old school type teams at college football, right? You see it with Army and Navy running the wing T or the option. But it's just like that bastion of old school football that Rutgers wanted to play. Maybe it just doesn't exist in 2024 and moving forward. Maybe that's a big picture schematic issue and self-identification that Rutgers has to look in the mirror and say, is this how we're going to play moving forward? Is this the best fit of our skills and our players and best use of our offense? I would make the argument when your best player is Kyle Monunga, you should be a team that grounds and pounds, right, and plays great defense. That all makes sense. The inability to do it is very suspect.
Yeah, I'm not ready to abandon it yet. I guess I'm just wondering why. Although I will say this, it seems like Greg Schiano and Joe Harrison may have abandoned it to some degree. And I go back to this one thing that my first job as a professional journalist, I covered Duke basketball at a time when Duke basketball did not have Duke basketball players. The best way I could describe it, just wasn't a good team. And I think back to that era, and I remember, talking to Mike Krzyzewski about this, the idea that, why aren't you playing zone defense? You don't have the people to play in the ACC, and it's about habits. This is how we play. We play an aggressive man-to-man defense. This is Duke basketball. It was a very interesting conversation about this. We didn't switch the zone because that's not how we do it here. And sure enough, they got the players, and a few years later, those habits those young players built. Bringing it back forward to Rutgers, I understand why they can't be the aggressive team. They don't have the personnel. They've lost all these key players and injuries. At the same time, I mean, like what? It's not like you're succeeding doing it the way you're doing it now. I mean, falling back, and I haven't looked at you watched the film. You might have a better idea. It seemed like they were falling back in zone a lot. Seemed like they playing soft coverage on things, and maybe it was all just inability to cover guys. But it just seems like the defense is not the way I remember them playing defense. I keep on coming back to that. I'm going to go back to last year and watch that team. Go back to 2006, like last year's team and the way they played defense is just completely different.
Yeah. Listen, I can't identify how many plays were zone and man. I don't have the numbers, and I don't have the football acumen to figure all that out. It did seem like every time Miller Moss dropped back to pass, he had infinite time to throw the ball. And whenever he did throw the ball, he had a guy with 5 yards of separation in every direction. Every play was seemingly a 10-yard gain. They averaged 11 yards per first down. 11 yards per first down. That is an insane number.
Right.
Miller Moss averaged 11 yards per pass. And it's not like Greg Schiano kind of pointed this out. It's not like against UCLA where guys miss tackles at the second level, and that's why they've sprung out these big runs. USC guys were just wide open. Aside from the one play where Shaquan Loyal was on the guy and he just couldn't make the tackle, every other play, guys were just so open that they had so much space to run into. And I think it's a combination of everything. You can't get pressure on the quarterback, so that's not forcing him to make any mistakes. You can't get him down, right? So they have all this time. The corners are hurt, and they can't cover guys forever, even when they're healthy. So that allowed, and especially when USC has all these athletic, super fast, strong receivers. Like, it's impossible to cover them for that long. And then the linebackers are all young, aside from Tyrone Powell, and they're still learning their way. And a lot of times they just don't know where they're supposed to be. And the confluence of all of that, I think that's the biggest issue too with the defense, is so many things going wrong at once. You could probably overcome one of these issues at a time. When all of them are happening, that's what you get. You get a defense that's completely disjointed, discombobulated, and can't stop anybody. I mean, I was shocked they got 2 stops in that entire game. Rutgers gave up as many touchdowns as third downs they forced. Not stops, third downs.
It's amazing.
It's unbelievable. And I think USC, if they really, really wanted to, could have scored 70 points the way they were playing. Rutgers just could not stop them.
Yeah, it's jarring, Pat. And watching it happen. And again, it wasn't like, Miller Moss dropped back and threw a 75-yard pass.
Yeah.
It's all these little dinks and turn into these big plays. I think we added up. I don't remember what the final tally was. Was it like 23 plays over 10 yards or something?
So I did a post-game revision. It was 18. But to your point, Miller Moss attempted one pass longer than 19 yards, and it was incomplete.
Man.
11 of his completions were behind the line of scrimmage, and that turned into 120 yards and a touchdown of production.
Yes. So that's what I came in thinking, that the speed advantage for USC was going to be unmatched in this game. And it was beyond what I could have even expected, because UCLA rather showed how much faster they were than Rutgers. And maybe that was that Pac-12 style that we haven't seen in years. We've been used to seeing these physical type Big Ten games. And then these 2 speed teams come in and just completely obliterate Rutgers from a speed perspective. Maybe that's a bigger picture type thing to think about. But what's amazing to me, and all the stats you guys just put out just made it jump out even more. Like, Rutgers was still in this game, right? 28-20, have the momentum, and then that Mekhi Lemon 70-yard reception catch and run happens. It's amazing. And this is more of an indictment on USC to me, that USC didn't just blow Rutgers out of the water. The fact that it was that close of a game midway through the third quarter was still kind of like, come on, USC, like you should be better than this, or give some credit to Rutgers for keeping it close. But like 28-20, you're still feeling like Rutgers had a shot to win the game, despite how lopsided it felt.
Well, I think that's a credit to the offense that was keeping up with USC's defense, right? Like, and I think the shame is that they probably could have been neck and neck had they converted on some of their opportunities in the first half. Ethan Kaliakmanis, and he took blame for this, but he misses Dymere Miller on a wide open pass down the middle of the field on a 4th down. That's a touchdown instead of a turnover on downs. On the first drive, they get a field goal in a drive. They get to the red zone. You convert that. That's another 4 points. You score those 2 touchdowns. You're talking about a 28-28 game. And even the last drive of the first half, Rutgers kicks a field goal from the 2-yard line because they can't throw the ball into the end zone from the 2. They had the ball 1st and goal at the 2-yard line with 15 seconds left. They couldn't run the ball because they had no timeouts, because a few plays later, Ethan Kaliakmanis scrambles, tries to get out of bounds, and slips. If he doesn't slip, they don't waste the timeout, and they have that timeout. Because of that, they had no more timeouts. And Greg Schiano mentioned that this was a decision, right? You're on 4th down at the 2-yard line with 4 seconds left. You have one play. You either kick a field goal and get the points, or you run with Kyle Monangai and try to score a touchdown. I lean towards trying for the touchdown, right? I can understand why he went for it, because you get the ball back to start the second half. But this is all to say, the offense kept up with USC. The offense did its job 2 weeks in a row. The defense just could not get a stop that allowed them to kind of get over the hump.
Yeah. And one of these questions we didn't ask about the field goal, but he answered it anyway. At the time, I was like, come on, man, you're not going to win this game with field goals. As you think about it, though, I don't know. I can see what he was saying when he explained what his thinking was: get some momentum, get some points. I mean, it wasn't, again, like Pat mentioned, it wasn't one of these blowout games at halftime. They were still in it at that point, theoretically. It's just, they couldn't, I mean, it didn't matter what the offense did. They were never going to stop them in a big spot. And I think that's, 4 first half possessions, 4 USC touchdowns. And yeah, the offense was good. I was surprised at how well they played. They ran the ball well and passed the ball. Then they lost Kyle Monangai. That was a big factor, obviously, what happened here. But even the young running backs looked okay. Got nothing bad to say about the offense. I get it. You're not going to be perfect. I don't expect perfection from the offense. I certainly expect a lot better from the defense.
Yeah, no question. No question. Absolutely.
I will say I was very impressed. I know we've seen Kyle Monangai do this a lot the last 2 years. I was so impressed with his ability to turn nothing into something.
Yeah,
I mean, he was
man.
dodging tackles, carrying guys on his back for extra yards, creating offense where there was just nothing. And I don't know how long he'll be out. That hit he took to the head and then the subsequent tackle that it made his head hit the ground looked pretty rough. I mean, I'd be shocked if he doesn't have a concussion. And I don't know how long that'll keep him out for. But I mean, just the difference he makes is remarkable. And he's turning what would have been 2nd and 12s into 2nd and 6s out of sheer will. And you list, I guess I mentioned it while we we're talking about the hit. The USC defender who tackled and hit Kyle Monangai was caught with the Fox cameras doing the sleeping motion. Just not great. Not a great look. Really not. Because you saw before that, a USC defender was on his knees, almost seeming like he's praying for Monangai. And if it was a stark comparison to that, you don't like seeing that. It's not great. But I think I don't expect Kyle Monangai to be out for the year with this concussion. I don't think it's that bad, right? But anytime he loses will impact his team because it's so clear how important he is to this offense. And I do want to talk about Ethan Kaliakmanis. 2 weeks in a row. Really, really good. Again, I think he's missing that next step where he makes those big throws in big moments. Again, that pass to Miller comes to mind. Just that he's doing all the basic things you want out of him. Making good throws, connecting short yardage, moving the chains. The next step is making that big throw at a big moment when Rutgers really needs it. But otherwise, I really think that his season's been great, and he was great against USC.
He's the quarterback we thought we were going to get. Like no one said he was going to be Caleb. We didn't think Carson Palmer again. We thought he was going to be a better and above average quarterback, like a guy who can complete the simple passes, read defenses. He's doing all that. I mean, I've got no complaints, and I get it. People, you would want ideal world. You would want a better quarterback than he is, but given the options they had, given the, I think he's been fine.
Absolutely. And think about this. This was a great stat that came out of this game. This was the first time a Rutgers receiver had double-digit catches. Speaking of Dymere Miller, he had 12 catches. 11. It was the first 11 for the first time since 2012. 2011 again, since Mohamed Sanu had that many catches against Army. And that just showed that they got the receiver, they got the quarterback. Mm-hmm. The offense is elevated. They're in these games because of the offense, and then the defense was such a strength. Top 20 in all these categories last year is now going to be, bottom third at least in terms of yards allowed, points allowed, third down efficiency, red zone, all going to be very, very alarming statistics. And especially early in the season, we hammered Rutgers for its inability to get after the quarterback. They were almost dead last in tackles for losses and sacks. They're still down there. There's not an issue on this defense that's not alarming. Every single thing is a 5-alarm fire.
All right. Speaking of 5-alarm fires, I kind of wrote about this in my column after the game, but Greg Schiano's got to hold things together on two fronts. Right? He's got to hold together the season, obviously. And I think if you look at what's coming here, the remaining 4 games after the bye, they will not be favored in any one of these games. It's likely. Even I don't know. It's hard to say on the road, I guess, in the season finale. Don't know where Michigan State's going to go, where that season's going to head, but still, you're on the road. Chances are you won't be favored there. So you're looking at Rutgers' uphill battle to get to the 6-6 level for a bowl game minimum. Like that would be, at this point, would be just a great turnaround for this season. I think you'd sign for that in blood at this point. 6-6, get me to Detroit, wherever it is. But the other part of this is, and this is, I think, the bigger problem, is holding it together just from a big picture programmatic standpoint of all the things that happen when a team goes off the rails like this. And I think you're seeing it already. And that to me is the bigger concern, right? You've got already a decommit from a quarterback recruit this weekend. You got some negative publicity we're seeing. If you look at it, what USA Today kind of put them in the programs. We have reached the point where Greg Schiano 2.0 is trending toward failure. That's what Dan Wolken of USA Today wrote. You're starting to see that stuff out there. This is a really precarious spot right now for this program.
Yes, they've had decommits 3 straight weekends now. And you could explain all of them in a vacuum. The quarterback, I think, if I understand the reporting from our friends at Rivals correctly, has been emerging as a junior this season, has had a really good year. And it's a lot more to do with that than with Rutgers' collapse, but I think that certainly doesn't help, right? So again, in a vacuum, we can explain all these decommits as a conjunction. That's now 3 decommits in the 25 class. The star jewel of your 26 class is decommitting. You're 4-4. You lose 4 straight games going to a bye week. People are starting to notice on the outside. I'm curious about the inside, keeping everyone together on the inside when you have a lot of these guys that are seniors, and I've touched on this, come back for that one last year to try to make that one last push. You're 4-4 at the bye week. Are you really going to go all out and play for the Senior Bowl? Not the Senior Bowl. To make a bowl game as a senior, go 6-6 when you thought you can go 8-4, 9-3. A lot of these guys have to put tape out there to kind of make their case for the NFL, right? Outside of Hall and Pierce, there's really no surefire NFL draft pick here, and maybe Kyle Monangai. So these guys do have the incentive to go out and play well to build their draft profile that way. But I mean, if you're looking towards the NFL, do you really want to risk your body when a lot of these guys are already banged up? A lot of these guys are the ones that Greg Schiano's talking about playing at 70-80%. Do you really want to go out there and risk your body against Minnesota to go to Detroit? I don't know. That's part of the challenge for Greg Schiano, is to incentivize those guys to keep going and to keep playing. Because if one guy or 2 guys starts thinking, maybe I don't want to do this anymore, that might become the same way that the trickle effect happened in January, where these guys all decided to come back together and that kind of built a snowball. This could be the inverse, where one guy says, I'm not sure I want to do this, and that can go the other direction. So a lot to hold together for Greg Schiano. It's going to be a really key bye week here in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say one more thing about USC, and I tweeted this and caught some slack for it or whatever. USC had 4 defensive starters out in its secondary. 4. Rutgers was dinged up. Of course, we've been hammering this for weeks that these injuries are mounting, and it's right. They're playing at not 100%. But as many people have said, like, the injuries just can't be an excuse anymore. All those guys were on the field that were questionable. Even Aaron Lewis played. So like, it's just, I'm starting to trend towards it being more of an excuse than anything else. Like, if you're good enough to play, then you can't go back on it. Oh, we're playing banged up. Yeah, sure. Every team's banged up. That's the way it is. Mm-hmm. And USC clearly didn't make any excuses in this game.
You lost. Go ahead.
Say, Robert Longer being acknowledged. I asked him if he's playing hurt, and he said, if I'm on the field, I got to make the plays. So I think the guys are all on the field. Are all kind of following your idea, Pat. Yeah.
Rutgers lost Mo Toure, clearly most important defensive player in August. Mm-hmm. Sure. Tough loss. They've not recovered from that injury from a defensive standpoint. The defense has been bad. We talked about it. The Howard game. The defense was not what we expected. Not because of injury. I mean, it's certainly, I get it. Injuries have impacted this team greatly, but it's more than that. I totally agree with what you're saying. The defense was going to take a step back when it should have been the opposite from the start, I think. And that is 100% true.
There are things I wonder that we can't quantify, right? But you lose a really, really good linebacker coach in Corey Heatherman, who goes to Minnesota to be their DC. That means you move Joe Harris-Simiak to pull double duty as the linebackers coach and the defensive coordinator. Does that stretch him a little too thin? I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing it out there that it is a thing. Then you have 2 coaches on the defensive line, and yet that unit has not taken a step forward. You could argue it took a step back. It's been just as bad, if not worse, than last year. Right. Do we underestimate the impact of all those coaching moves in the offseason? I think it's certainly possible. I don't think Joe, like Greg said, I don't think Joe Harris-Simiak has forgotten how to coach. I think he's still one of the brightest defensive minds Rutgers has had in a while, but clearly something is missing there because last year guys were not missing assignments and being confused. And, linebacker was the strength of this team last year. It was going to be the strength of this team going in. And I just don't think losing your best player can explain why they've been so bad this year.
Right. Yeah. The other part about the defense, and to me, it's a different beast, different animal when we're assessing coaches than when we're assessing the offense. Because when Greg Schiano hires the offensive coordinator, that person is running the offense. Greg Schiano's a defensive coach. This is his defense. This is his philosophy. I mean, this is his 40-year coaching career is built around this. Right. This is him. Like, I can't just go, Harris-Simiak, got to get rid of the defense. I can't look at the line. Sorry, just can't look at the linebacker coach here. This is at the very top of these problems, right? To me, it just you'd be rearranging the furniture if you're talking about defensive line coaches, and maybe they make changes there, but those guys are recruiters above anything else, right, Pat? I mean, that's not.
Yeah.
I get it. They're position coaches, they're practice, but you're looking for guys who can bring in talent at some of those jobs.
Absolutely, and you're right. It goes all the way to the top. This is not like a. Actually, I don't know, because the more I think about it, like there are some games I watch and the fundamentals are just so off, and then I'm like, maybe it is here's a very X's and O's type thing that's not getting done in practice, and maybe it's that. And then you think about it. No, it's philosophical. No, it's literally everything. There's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
And that falls on at the guy at the top.
Well, this is a good transition to some of the questions we got, because there are a lot of staffing questions. And several people asked this one: should Schiano take over more of the defensive play calling in the bye week? He's got an opportunity to do it now. What can Schiano and the D coordinator do to change the D to be better? What schemes? Kind of talked about this last week, which is not sure. Tony and Lawrence had a specific one that is just so true. It seems like SC got 100 yards and simple dumps to the running backs in the flat that were totally uncovered. I get a busted coverage once, but it kept happening. What is up with that? Okay. I mean, I don't know that putting something else on Greg Schiano's plate during the game is a great idea, given some of the, we've seen this. I hate to make it parallel. We've seen this with the Jets. The moment the Jets get rid of Robert Saleh, all of a sudden the DC is responsible for more things, and the defense took a step back. I don't know. Do you guys think there's any chance that having him call defensive plays would help?
I think they're going to have to make some schematic changes, and it seemed like Greg alluded to that at the end of his press conference with talking about things they have to think about in the bye week, and I think that'll help. Again, I think ultimately the issue here is talent and inexperience, and that's not going to be fixed in the bye week.
Right.
Daryl Jabome isn't suddenly going to become twice as talented and 4 times more experienced because they have a week off, right? I think there's only so much you can do in that area, and that's a big reason why they're struggling, because Mo Toure, if he was in there, would be a lot more experienced and a lot more talented and would be able to cover a running back out of the flat a lot better. So I think to answer your question, making coaching adjustments is the only answer. Will Greg Schiano be the one to do it? I don't know, but I would be surprised if they didn't. Again, to the question earlier, I don't expect them to be playing, giving receivers 10 yards of cushion and doing whatever they're doing now. I think they'll adjust somewhat because they have to.
I will say the thing that's going to help Rutgers the most coming out of its bye week is that it's facing Minnesota, a team that's not going to blow you off the field with speed all over. It's more of take out all the coaching and the storylines there. Rutgers and Minnesota are very similar from an identity standpoint. They're teams that are physical, run the ball, play great defense. So I think more so than anything else, it's finally a matchup that Rutgers can be more on the same playing field with. So I think more than anything else, it's going to be a matchup, and then you'll get the extra week to prepare for it. I think that's the best news for Rutgers coming out of the bye.
Right. All right. We got a bunch of other questions on the depth NIL situation. This has become a very popular topic, and I think it's going to be a dominant topic of the off season. Chris Guida. I don't know how you pronounce your name, Chris. I'm going with Italian Guida because they're sounds like a Netley issue. On the Twitter, recognizing that actual NIL totals are a total shot in the dark for the most part, do you think Indiana or Illinois have 2 to 3 times what Rutgers has available for football? I think we would round about par, but maybe Mark Cuban helped them with depth. I love Mark Cuban. That's good. Still doesn't excuse poor coaching. How much NIL money do we need to stop being a developmental college football team? That's Steven in Berlin. All right, let's dive into this, because I think the other big problem that Rutgers has this year is Indiana, and to a lesser degree Illinois. But the Indiana thing, that is not just a team that might crash the playoff. Oh, heaven to Betsy. But the team that, Rutgers fans sees that and goes, well, what the hell? What's up with that? Why can't we have a season like that? And I think there is obviously an NIL part of this, right? I mean, from what we understand, I don't know what the number is. We've heard $9 million. I mean, the things that are being thrown around. It obviously it had an impact on this. But the one thing I will say, right, is Indiana built this team with 13 guys from James Madison and a MAC quarterback. The other part of this, it's not like they were outbidding Alabama for offensive linemen, right? I mean, I understand that I'm not being naive. They have more money for the payroll, thus we'll have a better chance getting players in the portal. I understand that, but to the point, it's not this exaggerated Oregon 25 million thing.
Indiana is a complete anomaly. Like, this is why it's such a captivating thing, is that this stuff like this never happens in college football. This is one of the worst programs. This is the program with the most losses in Division I history, having its greatest season in 60 years, right? This is a complete anomaly. Kurt Cignetti is a great coach. He brought a lot of great players from JMU. He got a lot of good players from the portal, including one that Rutgers wanted in CJ West, right? And they have a light schedule that they ran right through, right? I think the confluence.
Can we just say Nebraska before we light schedule, but 56-7 over? That's a pretty good win.
Sure. Listen, I don't disagree, but I think we're missing the forest for the trees here, comparing it to Indiana, because Indiana is such an anomaly. Here's what I'd like to say. I remember when Keith Sargent had his great reporting about NIL, name, image, and lagging behind, and everyone was saying classic NJ.com, negative NJ.com. That can't be true. I'm being told that our NIL is not that bad. Oh, why would they lie? And now all of a sudden, when they're 4-4, it's why didn't anybody mention that NIL is bad? Well, we tried to tell you a year ago that Rutgers is completely lagging behind in NIL, does not have the same money as its counterparts, and it's showing now. Rutgers forever has had to be a team that does more with less. Rutgers has never been the most well-funded athletic department in any league it's played in, including the Big East. Greg Schiano has built a program in the past and now off of getting young developmental guys, building them up, and winning games with them. It worked last year. It's not working this year. It's not going to work every year. This is just kind of the way it is. And unless Rutgers finds a Mark Cuban, which I highly doubt, it's the way it's going to be, right?
Right.
Does NIL play a part in this? Absolutely. And anyone who says no is naive, because the more money you have in NIL, the better players you can get. And the better players you have, the better you play, right? Coaching helps that, but it only does so much. The Jimmies and Joes still matter. The more talented teams still win more on average. And the more talented teams are the one with the most money. And again, unless there is a radical shift in the way things have happened at Rutgers for the last 150 years, Rutgers will always be among the bottom in any league it plays in NIL money. It's a matter of the coaching staff having to do more with less. Clearly this year, that did not work, but that's what it's going to be for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, but my problem with the NIL situation is, well, many things, obviously, but the lack of transparency with this is something that I have a problem with. Like, they're going to start losing a losing streak, and now we're like, well, gee, if Johnny in section 230 gave more than his $20, maybe this would be better. I just don't believe that to be the case, and I don't know, these are big time people who are giving money here, and I have no idea what it is. Like, I have no idea. Like, I know that all of the money is not just from the Knights of the Raritan. Greg Schiano keeps all this stuff close to his vest. I don't know what the number is. I suspect it's bad, but I have no idea. And that's part of the problem with the NIL game. I don't know what the number is. I don't know the number that Rutgers needs is. I don't know who they're spending the money on. Like, it's just the whole thing. It's it's shrouded in secrecy. And I love where it's going, where we're going to blame Pat Hobbs on the way out the door. And he was an obstacle to all of this. I get it. He fought it. He was small-minded. He didn't want to do it. He didn't want to be bothered. He thought it was, he not following the letter of the law. He completely screwed that up. One of his big things he got wrong. I do not know, though, if they had the most aggressive person in that job, how much different it would be, because I don't know what the number needs to be. It's just, the whole thing is just really, really strange to me. I don't know. Do you guys disagree with this?
So, in best case scenario, Rutgers has unlimited resources in NIL. They go out and get which quarterback?
Whoever they want.
Whoever they want.
Resources.
It would have been Kyle. It would have been Kyle McCord.
They could have gotten They could have gotten any quarterback, any defensive end, any left and right tackle, any guard, any center, any linebacker.
It's just another excuse. It's just another excuse. We can't sing the praises of this team was going to be great because of all this experience coming back, all this talent, and then here we are now. Right. Now that it's falling apart, to blame NIL after we probably said, "Oh, Rutgers got all these guys back, NIL must have played a big part in getting all these guys to come back, right? So
it's just absolutely
and so it again, as Steve said, it's so shrouded in mystery. You're never going to know the truth of it. And you don't know Indiana. Who knows what Indiana, right? Like I don't know. You just can't trust it. The last thing I'll say about Indiana, I get roasted every single week because at 4-0, I put out this stupid tweet that's going to be a freezing cold take of my life that Rutgers should have been in the top 25 over Indiana. And now here we are.
It's cold in here, Pat. Someone turn on the
awful. Heat. It is awful. But my point at the moment, for anyone who cares and anyone who wants to listen and hear me out, the point I was trying to make was at 4-0, Rutgers' Rutgers win over Washington was better at the time than any win that Indiana had, even though they were a routing team. They were routing bad teams. So that was my argument at the time. And now it just looks absolutely freezing.
Little on the chilly side.
The bright side here is that revenue sharing is coming, right? Mm-hmm. And that will even out the playing field, and it will depend less on the donors. The donors will still matter, right? Teams can still give out legitimate NIL through donors that will help bolster it, but that'll even out the playing field. But again, NIL has always been a problem. And
is it coming next year, the revenue sharing?
I don't know. That I truthfully do not know.
Yeah,
I think it is. Yeah, it seems like it's still on pace. All the resolutions that have come out of the courts. So,
interesting.
All I know is this.
Because they're going to be back. They're going to be back looking, and this is the thing about NIL. They're going to need it this coming off season. There's no question, because they're going to have so many holes to fill in this team, and there is no way this team can go into next season without going into the portal. And I will have plenty of time to discuss this from December on to July, but they're going to need to immediately get in the portal in December to fill a lot of holes on this team.
Now, my question here is
money.
My question here is, would Rutgers be better at selling that they need more money out from the donors in NIL if they go 4-8 and it's a disaster, and you could say, listen, we didn't have enough money to compete, or if they go 6-6?
Everything's better at 6. Everything's better with more wins. Everything, I think. Because if they go 4-8, there's going to be a lot of people making questions about, am I wasting my money? That's going to be what's going to happen at 4-8. And I think people are going to start having questions about Greg Schiano, right or wrong. They're going to say, you're 5 or 4-8. All right, there's going to be a lot of that. At least 6-6. The narrative can be, hey, look, we were dealt a bad hand. We lost a lot of guys. We still won bowling. You would have signed. Look what happened to Chris Ash. You would have signed for bowls back then and be happy with a win over Washington on prime time. Then you'll have, if you go 6-6, you'll have beaten a Michigan State or a Maryland. There at least will be some positives. 4-8 is a disaster.
Agreed.
All right.
I do want to say, just to be clear, NIL is a problem. It was a problem at 4-0. It's a problem at 4-4. Just to be clear, I think we can all agree that they have nowhere near enough resources in NIL, and that is a problem they have to and probably are going to be unable to fix until revenue sharing saves the day.
Right. All right. Diving into some more questions. Rocco wants to know, it seems to me Schiano's not recruiting as well as he did his first time here. Do you feel that way? Also, that's from Rocco. A lot of questions about what's going to happen to this recruiting class. I mean, I thought all indications were that he was recruiting as well or better. Is it that he's not identifying the players who are on the margins as well? Did he get lucky in a lot of guys? Like, the example of the McCourty twins being 2-star players. I mean, is there stuff that maybe he's not? I don't know. I mean, and it's a good question, though. I do wonder now about, we haven't seen a lot of those guys come through the pipeline.
I think the guys that are playing now and the best players on the team were guys that were not big recruits coming out of high school. Just think about, you could rattle off of the 5 best guys on this team, right? Kyle Monungai had 1 or 2 Division I offers, right? Longer Beam was going to Temple, flipped over to Rutgers. Flip Dixon, right, was at Minnesota, not a huge recruit. Dymere Miller came from Monmouth. So Holland Pierce was a walk-on, right? So yeah, the development is definitely there for this team. There's no question. And the the recruiting class for 2024 was one of the best that Greg Schiano's ever assembled. 2025, sorry. The class that's coming in it's one of its highest rated classes ever. So to say that he's not recruiting at a high level is unfair. I think that's unfair.
Right. We might say it's not as important as it once was, Brian. Is that the development thing?
Yeah, I think nowadays the portal allows you to kind of fill in the depth a lot faster, right? Mm-hmm. And I think Rutgers is seeing that because maybe the guys that are playing right now could be good in a year or two, but they're playing too early. Guys like Daryl Jabome probably was a year or two away anyway, right? And now he's thrust into being the starting linebacker of this team because of injury. So I think, and that's across multiple, like Jabril Abdul-Rahman, he probably is going to be a good defensive lineman, probably a little early, right? So I think that's part of the thing. Whereas if you build through the portal, which again takes a lot of NIL, but if you build through the portal, it's usually guys who have been in college and played a few seasons and have experience and have college bodies. I don't think it's going to change, obviously, given the fact that they have 25 guys committed in the 2025 class. Still seems like high school recruiting and building that foundation and developing them is going to be the bread and butter of this program. But I do think that if there is a reevaluation in the offseason, going a little heavier in the portal might be a change they make.
All right, a couple more questions. This one's a good one from Think the Shrink in Westfield. Here's a fun scenario. Lee, if you were the head coach, Fonseca the OC, and Lanny the DC, what would you do for the remaining 4 weeks differently and the same to win at least 2 of the remaining games? I love this. I'm the head coach. First of all, these press conferences are going to be. You think Greg talks down to a young Brian in the first row? Can't wait till you see me behind that podium. You don't know football, kid. What would we do though? Let's take this seriously. Well, I mean, I think the one thing that I would do is make sure I'd want to be aggressive in every possible way. Offense, I want to throw I think about it, and Sean Gleason really got a bad rap at the end, but his first 2 years there where they were running some stuff, they were being creative, they were catching teams off guard with stuff that you didn't see the week before. It was an exciting offense at times. Not always a good offense, but there were times when you didn't know what to expect from it. I'd want that offensively. Defensively, the same thing. I mean, I want more aggression. I want to see this team closer to the team that I expected to see in the style of play. I guess that's what I would do. I don't know if that would mean personnel changes. I'm going to leave that to you guys. That's the directive from the head coach. You're the coordinators. You figure it out. What do you got?
I would do approximately the same thing that they're doing. Throw the ball maybe a little bit more to Christian Dremel. Other than that, I think
that's it. That's your answer. Is OC? You're fired. The only thing, more Dremel. Gotta have more Dremel. The first day of practice, you're gonna march in there. I gotta have more Dremel.
The offense looks fine. Maybe I make a change at left guard. Taj White, great kid, man. Brutal game. He gave up 8 pressures against USC. Holland Pierce, the left tackle, has given up 7 all year. It's tough game. I don't know what the solution is at left guard. Might have to try to find. So that'd be my 2 things. Try to find a solution at left guard. More Christian Dremel. Otherwise, keep doing what they're doing. They've been doing pretty good so far, I'd say.
Okay. Pat,
that's why Brian's in the weeds. Brian's in the weeds. I love the aggression part. I want more accountability first and foremost. I want to see I want to bring this to a professional level. As a Giants guy, I loved it when I saw Brian Daboll ripping his guys on the sideline. I don't know if that works in college. But for me, it was like, wow, there was some accountability on that play. And these guys that are on my defense are not getting it done. I want to see them held accountable on the field. Or if you're not going to be, if you can't cover and you're playing hurt and you can't go, it's time to move on. We need the next guy up. It's that point. It's that point where everything we've done to this point is not working. We need wide scale changes. And if it's not going to be from an accountability point, playing time point of view, then we're going to need whole scale changes. That's above my pay grade as a Rutgers Rant guy.
All right. Last question. Very simply, does Rutgers win another game this season?
Yes.
What do you think?
Yes.
Okay. Which one?
Great question. If I knew, I would put all the money I have on that game.
It's very fascinating. Yeah, it's a fascinating list because right now the worst team might be Maryland based on what I've watched recently. But Maryland, I mean, I think about last year, they were miles apart.
And they beat USC at home.
Yep, that's true. Mm-hmm.
Most winnable in my view is Minnesota.
Okay.
Least winnable is Maryland.
Least winnable is Maryland. Fascinating. Why?
Because of the matchup and the speed and the offensive capability that Maryland plays with.
They gave up 48 points last week to somebody, right?
Yeah, but they score at such a high level, and Rutgers can't stop anybody.
Okay, that's true.
Good point.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And then
I would.
Illinois is right there too. As
it's fun.
This is gonna least winnable.
This is interesting. Right now, if you look at that, whatever the ESPN FPI thing, whatever the hell it's called, Illinois is the game that they have the best chance of winning. Isn't that wild? Yeah, I was surprised by that when I glanced at that. I tend to think at home after the bye, Minnesota is your best chance because it comes first and the team's still engaged. And if you lose it, then you start to wonder a little bit about where this is going, if the team's going to check out. So I think that's the one. After that, probably Michigan State for me. Brian, what's your guess?
I'm already worried about the team checking out, frankly. 4-4 at the bye week. That's, to me, is prime checkout time. I guess maybe you have one last stand against Minnesota. I think that's a game that everybody should be juiced up for. There's so many storylines. It's very meaningful, I think, to Ethan Kaliakmanis. I don't think he'll say it publicly, right? Because he just will not say anything like that. But I have to think that after transferring here from Minnesota, that'll be a meaningful game for him. Kirk Shiraka coached there. Joe Harris-Simiak coached there. Flip Dixon. Both ways. Corey Heatherman is coaching there now. Like, just so many things that you'd want to get juiced up for. And to Pat's point, the matchup, it's a game that is probably going to be low scoring anyway, similar to Illinois. So even if you get dominated, it's not like Minnesota is going to have a three touchdown lead on you, right? I know they did that to Maryland, to your point, Steve, this week. I just can't imagine that'll be the same thing. So if you're in a 1-score, 2-score game with them, you're always going to hang around. I think if they beat Minnesota, they'll win another game. They'll go 6-6. I think if they lose to Minnesota, there's a real chance they go 4-8. I think that's a real swing game. To your point about motivation, momentum, and kind of showing they still have some life. I think if you lose that game, all bets are kind of off.
We keep on moving the pivotal game of the year with Wisconsin. You got to win this one. Except UCLA. It's all those on now. Now it's Minnesota.
Well, I think very clearly the UCLA game was you got to win this game to have any hope of a special season, right? That killed the special season talk, right? I think the Wisconsin game was kind of the early version of the special season. I think this Minnesota game is can you make a bowl game? Like we've lowered the bar significantly. I think we're moving the goalposts. I think we're moving on to different goals. Like the goal of a special season is done for, over, no hope. They're not winning out. I mean, they're just not. And the new goal is a bowl game. If you lose to Minnesota, forget Detroit. I don't think they're going anywhere. I really don't.
Okay. All right. Good job. Thanks everyone for the questions. If we didn't get to them, we'll try again later. Anything else? We got a lot going on, right? There's a lot of else out there. Women's soccer, men's soccer, field hockey. What do you got?
So women's soccer finished 5th in the Big Ten standings. They're the 5th seed in the Big Ten tournament. They will play Michigan State on the 2nd, which I believe is Saturday. Field hockey finished 4-4 in Big Ten play. The tournament field isn't out. They're going to make it because it's top 7. They probably have to win the whole damn thing to make the NCAA tournament, which is going to be a tall task. Men's soccer, dead last in the standings of the Big Ten entering the last week of the season.
How many teams is that in the Big Ten?
I believe it's 14. I could be wrong.
Okay.
A lot of teams essentially, and they're all the way in the bottom. They have 4 points this season. So 1 win, 1 draw. Not great. So that's all I have on Olympic sports. Next week is the start of basketball season. It's crazy that it's already here, but next Wednesday, I guess next Monday, we can kind of preview the season and do all that stuff. But
a full basketball episode next Monday. That's a good idea. We have no football.
We still got to talk about Minnesota. No?
Wait, next Monday? Oh, next Monday. They're going to play Minnesota this week. They'll play Minnesota next week.
Well, I'm saying next Monday. We'll preview. I guess we'll save the Minnesota talk for Wednesday's preview episode.
Yeah.
We're out of things to say. People, when I asked for questions, a bunch of people said on the basketball. People are moving on. Even did you see the Twitter feed? And I don't want to get some, marketing intern fired, but they tweeted a photo of feels like fall and a photo of the rack just hovering there. It's like, ooh, that's what happens when you lose that Southern California 4-4 in late October. They're putting photos of the rack on your Twitter feed.
So if they get off to I don't think this is going to happen. But let's say they get off to a not great start in basketball. Are they going to pivot to lacrosse? Like, what's the next pivot here?
It's starting to feel like Christmas.
Pivot. There's no pivot. That's it. You can't get off to a bad start. What's a bad start in basketball? They got to be 5-0, right?
You think? You think?
Be. Oh God.
You think
Let's
every
talk
game
about
takes
that
on a life
later.
of its own, though. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Should we sign off there? Let's
so.
do it. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back on Monday, as we mentioned, to preview the hoop season.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at NJ.com/insider.